My name is Maynard Walker. I'm 32 years old, and despite my successful career designing award-winning sustainable buildings, I remain the black sheep in my family. No matter what I achieve professionally, my younger brother Austin has always been the golden child. Last month, while scrolling through Instagram, I discovered Austin was having a massive engagement celebration. Everyone was there. My parents, every aunt, uncle, and cousin, even relatives from overseas. Everyone except me. When I called my dad to ask why I wasn't invited, his response was simple. "It's just a reunion, Maynard. Nothing special." If you've ever felt excluded by your own family, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. This story might sound familiar. I grew up in Portland, Oregon with my parents Frank and Diana Walker and my brother Austin, who's 3 years younger than me. From the moment Austin could walk and talk, he became the center of our family universe. He was outgoing, athletic, and naturally charismatic in ways I never was. Where I was thoughtful and introverted, Austin was bold and the life of every gathering. My childhood bedroom walls were covered with academic awards, art competition certificates, and architectural sketches that would later become the foundation of my career. Austin's room displayed football trophies, team photos, and candid shots of him surrounded by adoring friends. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. "Austin's a natural leader," my dad would say, at family dinners. "Everyone just gravitates to him." My mother would nod in agreement, while I silently pushed food around my plate, my straight A's and creative accomplishments apparently invisible. I wasn't unhappy exactly. I had my own small circle of friends who shared my interests in design and art. My teachers recognized my talents and encouraged me. But at home, I lived in the shadow of Austin's golden glow. The defining moment came during high school graduation. As valedictorian, I had spent weeks perfecting my speech. The night before, during our family dinner, I asked my parents if they wanted to hear a practice run. "Actually, son," my dad said, checking his watch, "we need to head over to the field. Austin has a playoff game tonight." "But graduation is tomorrow," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. My mother touched my arm gently. "We know, honey, but this is a really important game for Austin's college scouts. We'll be there tomorrow, I promise." They made it to graduation, but barely. They slipped into their seats just as I approached the podium, both looking exhausted from celebrating Austin's game victory the night before. During my speech, I spotted my dad checking his phone, presumably for sports updates. When I finished to applause, they seemed relieved rather than proud. College provided the distance I needed. I received a scholarship to a prestigious architecture program in Massachusetts, while Austin stayed local, accepting a football scholarship to Portland State. Those 4 years away helped me build my identity separate from being Austin's quiet brother. I made genuine friends like Kyle Matthews, who became my roommate and closest confidant. Kyle came from a similar family dynamic and understood the complex emotions I carried. "Families see what they expect to see," Kyle would say during our late-night talks in our cramped dorm room. "It doesn't mean you're less valuable. It means they have vision problems." My parents called regularly during those first few months, but our conversations inevitably turned to updates about Austin. "Your brother just made starting lineup," or "Austin's fraternity elected him social chair." I'd listen, offer congratulations to relay, and change the subject to my classes. Their interest in my studies always seemed polite rather than genuine. Holiday visits home became increasingly awkward as I evolved into someone my family didn't quite recognize or understand. I'd talk about sustainable design principles or historical architecture movements, and conversation would stall until someone mentioned Austin's latest accomplishment. During my junior year, Austin started dating Jessica Blackwell, daughter of a prominent local business family. The Blackwells owned several car dealerships across Oregon and were well connected in Portland society. Jessica was perfectly pleasant when we met during Christmas break, but it was obvious she'd been coached on the family dynamics. "Your parents tell me you're some kind of genius architect," she said, with the tone one might use to describe an exotic pet. "That must be fascinating." Before I could respond, my mother jumped in. "Maynard has always been our little intellectual. But speaking of genius, Austin, tell everyone about your marketing plan for the insurance office." After graduating with honors and completing a competitive internship, I accepted a position at Braxton Design Associates in Boston. The distance from Portland wasn't accidental. I needed space to establish myself without constant comparison. "You know, you could come back to Portland," my father suggested during my job hunt. Tom Riley at Portland Insurance said they always need smart people in their claims department. "Dad, I'm an architect, not an insurance adjuster," I replied. He shrugged. "Just saying, it would be nice to have both my boys nearby. Austin really misses you." I doubted that. Austin and I exchanged birthday texts and occasional social media comments, but we hadn't had a real conversation in years. The brother who once shared a bedroom with me had become almost a stranger, our lives diverging in every possible way. Despite this, I made efforts. I sent thoughtful Christmas gifts. I called on birthdays and anniversaries. I commented positively on family photos posted online. My attempts were met with polite acknowledgement but never reciprocated with equal effort. Still, they were my family, and some stubborn part of me kept hoping for the connection I'd always wanted. 6 years after graduation, my career at Braxton Design was thriving. I had been promoted twice and was leading my own team on increasingly significant projects. My specialty in sustainable urban housing had started gaining attention in architectural circles, and I'd been featured in several industry publications. My landmark project, the Riverside Commons, was a revolutionary approach to affordable, environmentally friendly housing that incorporated renewable energy systems, community gardens, and shared workspaces. When the project won the Northeastern Architectural Innovation Award, I felt a surge of professional validation I'd never experienced in my family home. "This is groundbreaking work, Maynard," my boss, Richard Braxton, said at our celebration dinner. "You're changing the way people think about community living." That evening, I called my parents to share the news. My mother answered. "That's nice, dear," she said after my announcement. "Is it like a certificate or something?" "It's actually one of the most prestigious awards in East Coast architecture," I explained, trying to keep disappointment from my voice. "Well, we're very proud. Oh, did I tell you Austin just got promoted to senior sales manager? Youngest in the company's history? The Rileys are practically treating him like a son." The contrast between my professional recognition and my family's indifference might have crushed me if not for the support system I'd built in Boston. Kyle had followed me east after graduation, taking a job in finance and sharing an apartment with me our first few years. We'd remained close, even after getting our own places. My friend circle had expanded to include colleagues and neighbors who actually understood and valued my work. We celebrated each other's successes, offered support during setbacks, and created a chosen family that filled many of the emotional gaps left by my biological one. Then I met Lauren Henderson at a client meeting. She was an interior designer brought in to collaborate on the Riverside Commons project. Smart, creative, and refreshingly direct, Lauren challenged my ideas while respecting my vision. Our professional relationship quickly developed into friendship and then something more. "You have a gift for seeing spaces as they could be, not just as they are," she told me on our third date, as we walked along the Charles River. "That's rare." Lauren became my partner in every sense, supporting my work and encouraging me to maintain family connections despite the complications. She came from a tight-knit family and couldn't quite comprehend the distance in mine, but she never dismissed my feelings. "Families are complicated," she'd say, "but they're still your history, your blood. Sometimes people grow and change if given the chance." Meanwhile, Austin had settled into a predictable but successful life back in Portland. After college, he'd joined Portland Insurance, owned by my dad's longtime friend Tom Riley. His football connections and natural charm made him a natural salesman, and he rose quickly through the ranks. Through occasional social media updates and holiday phone calls, I watched from afar as Austin built the life my parents had always envisioned. His relationship with Jessica progressed along traditional lines, with her family's clear approval. On a random Tuesday in March, my mother called. This was unusual enough to be concerning, as our communications typically happened on Sundays. "Everything okay?" I asked immediately. "Oh, yes. Everything's fine," she assured me. "Just wanted to catch up." We exchanged pleasantries for a few minutes before she casually mentioned, "By the way, Austin and Jessica got engaged last weekend. He proposed at the Riley's lake house. Such a beautiful ring. Her parents are just over the moon." I felt a complex mix of emotions. Genuine happiness for my brother, mixed with the familiar sting of being an afterthought. No one had thought to call me when it actually happened. "That's great news," I said sincerely. "Austin must be excited." "Oh, thrilled. The Blackwells are already talking venues and guest lists. Jessica's mother knows everyone who matters in Portland." After the call, Lauren found me staring out our apartment window. "What is it?" she asked, slipping her arms around my waist from behind. "Austin's engaged," I said. "Mom just thought to mention it to me, a week after the fact." Lauren rested her head against my back. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "I'm happy for him. Just wish I didn't always feel like I'm reading my family's news from the last page of the newspaper." "Why don't you call Austin directly?" Lauren suggested. "Break the pattern. Reach out first." Her suggestion made sense. Perhaps I'd been complicit in maintaining the distance by always waiting to be included, rather than asserting my place in the family. That evening, I texted Austin congratulations and offered to take him and Jessica to dinner next time I visited Portland. His response came hours later. "Thanks, bro. Been crazy busy with everything. Will let you know." It wasn't much, but it was something. Lauren was right. If I wanted things to change, I might need to be the one to make the first move. I decided to look at flights to Portland for the coming months, thinking a surprise visit might be the gesture needed to bridge the growing gap between us. 3 weeks later, on a quiet Sunday morning in April, Lauren was at a yoga class, and I was enjoying my weekend ritual of coffee and social media browsing. I scrolled through Instagram, liking friends' photos and catching up on industry news, when I noticed an unusual amount of activity from my extended family connections. Cousin Taylor had posted several elegantly filtered photos with the hashtag number Austin and Jessica Forever. Curious, I tapped on the hashtag and found myself staring at dozens of images from what appeared to be a lavish engagement celebration. The event had been held at the Blackwell family's country club. There were professional photographs of Austin and Jessica standing beneath a flower arch, champagne flutes raised in celebration. Jessica wore a white cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, while Austin looked uncharacteristically polished in a tailored suit. But what caught my attention weren't the happy couple. It was everyone else in the photos. My parents, beaming with pride. Uncle James and Aunt Patricia, who I hadn't seen in years. Cousins from both sides of the family, including Taylor, who lived in Seattle and rarely made it to family events. Even my grandmother, who had claimed she was too frail to travel when I invited her to my architecture award ceremony last year. More photos revealed distant relatives I barely recognized from my father's side. Dad's college roommate Robert and his wife. Family friends I'd grown up with. Jessica's extensive family network. It appeared to be a gathering of at least 100 people. The final photo in the series was a group shot labeled "The entire Walker Blackwell family together." Everyone was there. Everyone except me. I put down my phone, feeling a familiar hollowness expand in my chest. This wasn't just a casual dinner announcement or impromptu celebration. This was a planned, formal event to which every single member of my family had been invited except me. After taking a few deep breaths, I picked up my phone again and texted Austin directly. "The engagement party looks amazing. Congratulations to both of you. Wish I could have been there." I tried to keep my message positive and free of accusation, though my hands shook slightly as I typed. Almost an hour passed before my phone pinged with Austin's reply. "Thanks, bro." That was it. No explanation. No apology for not including me. Not even an acknowledgement of my absence. Just 2 dismissive words that somehow hurt more than being ignored completely. I found myself dialing my parents' number before I could think better of it. My father answered on the 4th ring. "Maynard, how's the architectural world treating you?" His casual tone made the situation even more surreal. Did he think I wouldn't find out about the party? "Dad, I just saw the photos from Austin's engagement celebration," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It looked really nice." A brief pause. "Oh, that. Yes, the Blackwells certainly know how to throw a party. I notice everyone was there," I continued. relatives from both coasts, friends from decades ago. Grandma made the trip down. Another pause, longer this time. Maynard, it was just a family reunion type of thing. Nothing special. A reunion where I was the only family member not invited? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Now, don't be dramatic, my father replied, his tone cooling. You're all the way across the country. We didn't think you'd fly out for something like this. I heard my mother in the background, asking who was calling. Dad muffled the phone briefly, then my mother came on the line. Maynard, honey, is everything okay? It's not like you to call on a Sunday morning. I was just asking Dad about Austin's engagement party, I explained. I saw the photos online. Oh, she said, and I could picture her exchanging glances with my father. Well, it was really more of a Blackwell family thing. Jessica's mother organized most of it, but our entire family was there, I pointed out. Even Taylor flew in from Seattle. That's different, my mother said quickly. Taylor was already in Portland visiting friends. It just happened to coincide. Later that day, I texted Taylor directly, asking if she'd been in Portland on other business when the party happened. No way, she replied. I flew in specifically for the party. They sent invitations 2 months ago. First-class tickets for immediate family. I couldn't believe how fancy it was. She attached a photo of the invitation, an elegant card with gold foil lettering announcing, "The Walker and Blackwell families request the honor of your presence to celebrate the engagement of Austin and Jessica. Request the honor of everyone's presence except mine," apparently. I sat on this information for a day, turning it over in my mind. There was no scenario in which my exclusion was accidental. This was a deliberate decision, followed by blatant lies to cover it up. The realization settled into my bones with a cold certainty. I wasn't just overlooked or forgotten. I was unwanted. By Tuesday morning, I felt like I was sleepwalking through my life. I went through the motions at work, but my mind kept returning to those Instagram photos. Everyone smiling. Everyone together. The entire family caption that so casually erased my existence. Lauren noticed my distraction when we met for lunch near my office. "You've read the same menu item 3 times, she observed, reaching across the table to lower the menu from my face. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I told her everything. The elaborate party. The family-wide invitation. The absurd excuses my parents had offered. "Maybe there's an explanation," she suggested, always willing to see the best in people. "Could they have sent an invitation that got lost? Or thought you wouldn't want to come because of work?" I showed her Taylor's text with the invitation photo. "They started planning this 2 months ago, Lauren. No one mentioned it to me. Not once." Lauren's expression shifted from hopeful to concerned. "I'm so sorry, Maynard. That's genuinely hurtful. The worst part is, I'm 32 years old, and I still care," I admitted. "I still want them to see me." After lunch, I couldn't face returning to the office. I called Richard and requested emergency personal days, something I'd never done in 6 years at the firm. To his credit, he asked no questions and approved my request immediately. Back at my apartment, I found myself packing a bag with no clear destination in mind. I just knew I couldn't stay in Boston, surrounded by reminders of the life I'd built to prove my worth to people who would never value it. Then I remembered Kyle's standing offer. His family owned a cabin in the mountains of Vermont, and he'd repeatedly told me I could use it any time. Just for emergencies, like when you need to escape humanity, he'd joked. This qualified. I called Kyle, who was in the middle of preparing for a business trip to Chicago. "Take the keys, man. Take all the time you need," he said without hesitation when I explained the situation. "The cabin's stocked with essentials. There's a town about 20 minutes away for anything else you need." "You sure it's not a problem?" I asked. "The only problem would be you staying in the city and torturing yourself," Kyle replied. "Go. Breathe mountain air. Gain perspective. Just don't grow a weird mountain man beard." Lauren would never forgive me. 3 hours later, I was driving north on I-91, watching the urban landscape give way to increasingly rural scenery. The further I got from Boston, the lighter my chest felt. By the time I turned onto the unmarked mountain road leading to Kyle's family cabin, I had stopped checking my phone for messages that weren't coming. The cabin was exactly what I needed. Rustic, but comfortable. isolated but not desolate. Nestled among pine trees, with a view of mountains from the back porch, it felt like stepping into another world where family dynamics and childhood wounds couldn't reach me. That evening, I finally called Kyle, who had reached Chicago. "The place looks great," I told him. "Thanks for this. How are you feeling?" he asked, the background noise of his hotel muffling slightly. "Like I've been carrying this weight for so long I forgot it was there," I admitted. Seeing all those photos, knowing they deliberately excluded me, and then lied about it. It just confirmed what I've always suspected but tried to deny, which is that I'm not really part of the family. Not in the ways that matter. Kyle was quiet for a moment before responding. "Your family's missing out, man. Their loss. You know that, right? Intellectually, sure. Emotionally, I'm working on it." After we hung up, I sat on the porch watching darkness settle over the mountains. The isolation felt purifying rather than lonely. For the first time in days, I was able to take full breaths without the tightness in my chest. I spent the next day exploring the area around the cabin, hiking trails that Kyle had marked on a laminated map pinned to the kitchen bulletin board. The physical exertion helped clear my mind, pushing me to focus on each step, each breath, rather than the endless loop of family disappointments. On the third day, I discovered a closet full of winter sports equipment. Despite it being April, the higher elevations still had decent snow coverage, and the local ski resort was open for what they advertised as spring skiing. On impulse, I gathered gear that looked approximately my size and drove to the mountain. I hadn't skied in years, not since college trips with Kyle, but my body remembered the motions. The first few runs were awkward, but by midday, I was carving down intermediate slopes with growing confidence. The combination of speed, physical challenge, and complete concentration was exactly what I needed. On the slopes, there was no room for family drama or old wounds. There was only the mountain, the snow, and the next turn. By late afternoon, I had worked my way up to one of the higher lifts. At the summit, I paused to take in the panoramic view. Mountains stretched in every direction, painted in shades of blue and white against a perfect sky. For the first time in days, I felt a genuine smile form. I pulled out my phone and held it at arm's length, capturing myself against the backdrop of peaks and valleys. In the photo, my face looked relaxed, my smile authentic. The mountains behind me seemed to put everything in perspective. My family issues were just a tiny speck in this vast landscape. Without overthinking it, I posted the photo to Instagram with the caption, "Finding peace at 3,000 feet, while some find it in engagement parties. Number, my own path. Number, mountain therapy." It wasn't meant to be provocative. Not really. It was just an honest expression of where I was, physically and emotionally. I put my phone away, completed 2 more runs, and drove back to the cabin as sunset painted the mountains gold and pink. I was making a simple dinner of pasta and jarred sauce when my phone, forgotten on the counter, began buzzing continuously with notifications. So many they blended into one continuous vibration. When I finally checked my phone, I was bombarded with messages, missed calls, and social media notifications. My casual ski selfie had apparently unleashed a family-wide meltdown. The first message was from Austin, sent 20 minutes after I posted the photo. "Really mature, Maynard. Had to make this about you somehow, didn't you? Always have to steal attention." I stared at the message, baffled by its hostility. How exactly had I stolen attention with a simple vacation photo? Before I could process this, my phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded when I answered, skipping any greeting. "I'm at a cabin in Vermont," I replied calmly, "taking a few days off." "You know exactly what I mean," he snapped. "That passive-aggressive post. Jessica's parents saw it. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for the family?" "Embarrassing?" I posted a skiing photo with that caption, "Making it obvious you're bitter about the engagement party. Making us look bad to the Blackwells. Making Austin's special time about your hurt feelings." I took a deep breath. "Dad, I wasn't invited to my only brother's engagement celebration. Every other member of our family was there. I found out about it through Instagram. And you're upset about my caption on a ski photo? You're always so dramatic, Maynard," he sighed. "Always have been. This is exactly why we didn't think you'd want to come. You make everything complicated." Before I could respond, I heard my mother in the background asking for the phone. After some muffled conversation, she came on the line. "Maynard, honey," she began, her voice strained with forced patience. "Your post is breaking my heart. We're your family. Why would you publicly embarrass us like this?" "I didn't mention anyone by name," I pointed out. "It's just a photo of me skiing." "Don't play innocent," she said, her tone hardening uncharacteristically. "You knew exactly what you were doing. The Blackwells are very image-conscious people. This kind of drama reflects poorly on Austin's relationship with them." The conversation continued in circles. My parents alternated between anger and wounded disappointment, but neither acknowledged the central issue. I had been deliberately excluded from a significant family event. After I hung up, my phone continued to explode with messages. Aunts and uncles I barely spoke to were suddenly deeply concerned about family harmony. Cousins were taking sides in group chats. Even Jessica's mother, a woman I'd never met, had somehow obtained my number and sent a paragraph about respecting joyous occasions and not letting personal issues overshadow Austin and Jessica's special time. Kyle texted, "Dude, your family is wild. Stand your ground. You did nothing wrong." Lauren called repeatedly until I finally answered. "Are you okay?" she asked immediately. "Your mom called me looking for you. She seemed to think you'd gone off the deep end or something." "I'm fine," I assured her. "Just taking some space at Kyle's cabin." "Did my mom really call you?" "Yes, and she was very concerned about your state of mind and something about a social media crisis." "What happened?" I explained about the ski photo and the explosive reaction. "That seems extremely disproportionate," Lauren said slowly. "All this over a mildly pointed caption?" "Welcome to the Walker family dynamic," I replied, "where nothing I do is right and everything is a potential catastrophe." Amidst the barrage of critical messages, two stood out for different reasons. The first was from Taylor. "Just so you know, several people at the party asked where you were. Your parents said you were too busy with work to come. I should have called you directly. I'm sorry." The second surprising message came from my father's sister, Aunt Patricia, who I'd always experienced as somewhat cold and judgmental. "Maynard, I've watched how they've treated you for years. It's not right, and it's not fair. Your Uncle James and I have noticed the pattern since you were children. Stay strong. This isn't your fault." These messages were small validations, but meaningful ones. For years, I'd wondered if I was imagining the differential treatment, if I was overly sensitive or seeking problems where none existed. Knowing others had seen it too was oddly comforting. As evening turned to night in the mountains, the messages continued to pour in. Austin sent a series of increasingly angry texts, culminating in, "Jessica is crying because her mom is upset. Hope you're happy. Always knew you were jealous of me." My father called twice more, leaving voicemails that ranged from demanding I delete the post to suggesting I seek professional help for my attention-seeking behavior. My mother's approach shifted to guilt, with messages like, "I didn't raise you to be so selfish. I'm lying to everyone saying, you're just stressed from work. Please don't make me a liar, Maynard." Even my grandmother weighed in with a text clearly written by someone else on her behalf. "Grandma is very disappointed in your behavior. Family should support family. Please apologize to Austin and Jessica immediately." The volume and intensity of reactions was so wildly disproportionate to my actions that it became almost comical. I had posted a single photo with a mildly pointed caption, and my entire extended family was behaving as though I'd taken out a front-page newspaper ad exposing dark family secrets. Around midnight, exhausted by the constant notifications, I turned off my phone completely. The sudden silence was blissful. I stepped onto the cabin's porch, wrapped in one of Kyle's family's old quilts, and looked up at stars brighter than any I could see in Boston. In the quiet mountain night, with no family voices in my ear telling me who I was or wasn't, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The pain of exclusion was still there, but it was joined by something new. The certainty that I deserved better, and the dawning realization that I might need to create firmer boundaries to protect my peace. 3 days later, I returned to Boston. The drive back was peaceful, giving me time to process everything and prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Lauren met me at my apartment, her presence a silent support, as I finally turned my phone back on to find dozens more messages and missed calls. "You don't have to deal with all this right now," she said, watching my face as notifications continued to pour in. "Actually, I think I do," I replied. "I've been avoiding these conversations my whole life. Maybe it's time to have them." After sorting through the messages, I found one from my mother requesting a family video call to clear the air. She'd scheduled it for that evening at 9 Eastern Time. I replied with a simple "I'll be there" and spent the rest of the day settling back into my apartment and catching up on work emails. Lauren offered to make herself scarce during the call, but I asked her to stay. "You're part of my life," I told her. And honestly, I could use the moral support. At precisely 9, my laptop rang with an incoming video call. I took a deep breath, squeezed Lauren's hand, and clicked accept. The screen split into 3 panels. My parents sitting stiffly on their living room sofa, Austin alone in what appeared to be his home office, and Jessica in what looked like a bedroom, presumably elsewhere in the same house. Before I could even say hello, Austin launched in. "You need to take down that post and apologize to Jessica's family," he demanded, his face flushed with anger. "Do you have any idea what you've caused? Her mother is questioning whether our families are compatible. Her father asked if this is the kind of drama they can expect from the Walkers." "Austin," I said calmly, "the post is a photo of me skiing with a vague caption. If that's causing this much distress, the problem isn't my social media." "See?" Austin turned to look at my parents' video panel. "This is exactly what he does. Twists everything around." My father jumped in. "Maynard, you know exactly what you were doing with that caption. It was a deliberate attempt to create conflict and draw attention to yourself during Austin's special time." "My special time that you weren't a part of because you chose to move across the country," Austin added, "because you've always thought you were too good for this family." My mother's expression was pained. "We just don't understand why you would try to hurt us like this, sweetheart." I had come prepared for this. For days, I had been thinking about what I wanted to say, how to express my feelings, without allowing the conversation to devolve into accusations and defensiveness. I had notes prepared, but in that moment, looking at the family who had consistently made me feel like an outsider, the carefully crafted words felt unnecessary. "I wasn't invited," I said simply, "to my only brother's engagement celebration. Everyone else was there, every cousin, every aunt and uncle, friends of the family I haven't seen in years, but not me." And when I asked why, I was told it was just a reunion and that I wouldn't want to come anyway. Then I learned that Taylor was flown in specifically for the event, directly contradicting what you told me. I paused, noticing my parents exchanging glances. "This isn't an isolated incident," I continued. "It's part of a lifelong pattern. When I was valedictorian, you barely made it to graduation because you were tired from Austin's game the night before. When I won the Northeastern Architectural Innovation Award, Mom, you asked if it was like a certificate or something. When I call with news about my career, the conversation always shifts to Austin's latest accomplishment." My voice remained steady, but I could feel emotion building in my chest. Lauren's hand found mine under the desk. "For as long as I can remember, I've been an afterthought in this family. I've tried to tell myself it doesn't matter, that I've built my own life, my own success. But being deliberately excluded from a family event this significant, and then lied to about it, it confirmed what I've always suspected but tried to deny, that I don't really have a place in this family." A heavy silence followed. My mother was the first to break it, tears welling in her eyes. "We never meant to make you feel that way, Maynard," she said softly. "You were always so independent, so self-sufficient. Austin needed more attention, more guidance." "And I didn't?" I asked. My father shifted uncomfortably. "You were always reading, always in your own world with your drawings and ideas. Things we didn't understand. Austin was doing things we knew, things we could help with. So because I had different interests, I deserved less support? Less recognition?" "That's not what we meant," my mother protested. "But it's what you did," I replied, "and are still doing." My father's expression hardened. "You've always been difficult, Maynard. Always questioning, always challenging, never just accepting how things are. Do you have any idea how intimidating it is to have a son who was reading college-level books in middle school, Who corrected his teachers? Who looked at us like we were simple when we couldn't follow your architectural theories? This was a revelation. My father, intimidated by me, the man whose approval I'd spent decades seeking, was actually intimidated by my intelligence? Dad, I never thought you were simple, I said, genuinely surprised. I looked up to you. I wanted your approval more than anything. Well, you had a funny way of showing it, he muttered. Always doing your own thing, moving across the country, building a life that has nothing to do with us. The conversation was revealing layers of misunderstanding I had never anticipated. Before I could respond to my father, Austin spoke up, his tone less hostile than before. You want to know the truth about why you weren't invited to the engagement party? He asked. It wasn't my call. Jessica's parents wanted to meet our whole family. But when Mom showed them your website and all those fancy articles about your award-winning buildings, Mrs. Blackwell got this look on her face. Austin paused, seeming uncomfortable with what he was about to say. She said it might be better if you weren't there, because you might make me look less accomplished in comparison. And Jessica agreed. And I didn't fight it because part of me was relieved. I stared at my brother's image on the screen, speechless. You've always been the smart one, the talented one, the special one, Austin continued, his voice tinged with an emotion I couldn't quite identify. Do you know what it's like growing up with a genius brother? Having teachers constantly say, "Oh, you're Maynard Walker's brother?" He was such a remarkable student. Having parents who were clearly disappointed that I wasn't more like you? Wait, what? I interrupted. Mom and Dad have always favored you, always. Austin let out a humorless laugh. Are you kidding? They pushed me in sports because it was the only thing I could do that you couldn't. They celebrated every minor accomplishment because they were terrified I'd feel inferior to you. Dad talked up my insurance job because he knew I'd never do anything as impressive as you. Jessica, who had been silent until now, cleared her throat. I need to say something, she said quietly. I was the one who suggested not inviting you, Maynard. I wanted perfect family photos for our announcements, and I was worried about, well, this exactly. Drama and attention shifting away from our engagement. My parents are very traditional, and I wanted everything to look perfect. The call fell silent again as we all absorbed these revelations. Years of misunderstandings, projections, and assumptions had created a tangled web of family dysfunction that none of us could see clearly from our individual perspectives. I think, Lauren said, speaking for the first time and startling everyone who had forgotten her presence, that there's been a lot of misunderstanding on all sides. And maybe this is a chance to start fresh, with more honest communication. My mother nodded slowly. Lauren's right. We've all been operating on assumptions about each other's feelings and motivations. The conversation continued for another hour, sometimes tense, sometimes emotional, but more honest than any family discussion we'd ever had. No real resolution was reached, but truths had been spoken that couldn't be unsaid. As we prepared to end the call, I felt emotionally drained, but somehow lighter. We should talk more, my mother said. Regularly. Really talk. I nodded, not making promises I wasn't sure I could keep, but not closing the door either. As the video call ended, Lauren wrapped her arms around me. That was intense, she said. Are you okay? I'm not sure yet, I answered honestly. But I think maybe, eventually, I will be. For 2 weeks following the video call, my family maintained radio silence. No calls, no texts, no social media interactions. At first, I wondered if our confrontation had permanently damaged whatever fragile connection we had. But as days passed without the anxiety I usually felt around family communications, I realized the silence wasn't painful. It was peaceful. I channeled my energy into the Riverside Commons expansion project, finding renewed passion for creating spaces that fostered genuine community. The work felt more meaningful somehow, as if by articulating my family wounds, I'd freed creative energy previously used for emotional suppression. Lauren and I grew closer through the experience. Having witnessed the Walker family dynamics firsthand, she understood me in ways she couldn't have before. You know, she said one evening as we cooked dinner together. Watching how your family interacts helped me understand why you sometimes pull away when things get emotionally intense between us. You learned early that vulnerability gets either ignored or used against you. Her insight was so accurate, it momentarily took my breath away. I'm trying to unlearn that, I told her. I know, she smiled, squeezing my hand. That's why I'm still here. 18 days after the video call, I received an unexpected email from Austin. The subject line read simply, "Coffee?" The body of the email was brief. "I'll be in Boston next week for an insurance conference. Wednesday afternoon, free around 3. Thinking we should talk one-on-one. No Jessica, no parents, just brothers. The Brewing Ground Cafe near your office? Let me know." I stared at the message for a long moment before replying with a simple, "I'll be there." Wednesday arrived with a mix of spring rain and tentative sunshine that matched my uncertain mood. I arrived at the Brewing Ground 15 minutes early, securing a quiet table in the back. Austin walked in precisely at 3, looking simultaneously familiar and like a stranger in his business suit and conservative haircut. After ordering coffee, we sat in awkward silence until Austin finally spoke. "So, I've been thinking about what you said, about being excluded and overlooked." He fidgeted with his napkin, clearly uncomfortable. "I never really saw it from your perspective before. In my mind, you were the golden child, the genius, the special one, and in my mind, you were the favorite, the one everyone naturally loved and celebrated," I replied. Austin shook his head, a small, sad smile forming. "We've been living in completely different realities, haven't we? Seems that way." "Look," Austin sighed, "I'm not good at this emotional stuff, but I am sorry about the engagement party. It was wrong to exclude you, and I should have stood up to Jessica and her parents. That's on me." The apology wasn't perfect, still shifting some blame to Jessica, but it was more than I'd ever received from my brother before. "I appreciate that," I said simply. "I can't promise things will change overnight," Austin continued. "Jessica's family is, well, they're very focused on appearances, and our parents are who they are. But I want to try to be better, to be actual brothers, not just people who happen to share DNA." "What does that look like to you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I don't know exactly," he admitted. "Regular calls? Visits that aren't just at holidays? Getting to know Lauren better? Maybe you could help me understand what you actually do. All I know is you design buildings. But clearly it's more than that if you're winning awards and stuff." It wasn't a grand reconciliation, but it was a start. We spent the next hour talking more openly than we had in years, possibly ever. Austin shared his insecurities about measuring up to his in-laws' expectations. I talked about my passion for sustainable community spaces. We discovered we were both closet sci-fi fans, a shared interest we'd never known about. As we prepared to leave, Austin hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Mom and Dad are trying, in their way. They've been talking to a family counselor. Dad's idea, believe it or not." This surprised me more than anything else he'd said. "Dad suggested therapy?" Austin nodded. "The video call shook him up, made him realize he might lose you completely if things didn't change." 3 days after meeting with Austin, a package arrived from Portland. Inside was a leather-bound book of architectural photography featuring groundbreaking sustainable designs from around the world. The inscription read, "To our son Maynard, whose vision for better spaces inspires us to build a better family. Love, Mom and Dad." It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase decades of feeling secondary, but it was an acknowledgement, a recognition of who I actually was, rather than who they wished I would be. When formal invitations to Austin and Jessica's wedding arrived a month later, mine was addressed to Maynard Walker and Lauren Henderson. The personal note mentioned how meaningful it would be to have me there and how they hoped Lauren would join me. I appreciated the gesture, but also recognized I needed to protect myself from falling back into old patterns. I called my parents directly to accept the invitation, but with clear boundaries. "Lauren and I will be there," I told them, "but we'll be staying at a hotel, not the house. And we'll need some space to do our own thing while we're in town." To my surprise, they accepted these boundaries without protest. "Whatever makes you comfortable, son," my father said. the old defensiveness noticeably absent from his tone. In the months leading up to the wedding, our family communication found a new rhythm. Not perfect, not without occasional tensions, but more honest than before. My parents made visible efforts to ask about my work and actually listen to the answers. Austin and I established a bi-weekly phone call that sometimes lasted 5 minutes, sometimes an hour, but always happened. The wedding itself was as lavish as expected, with the Blackwells sparing no expense to create the perfect society event. Jessica's mother was coolly polite to me, clearly still harboring concerns about my disruptive potential. But I found I didn't particularly care about her approval. What mattered more was Lauren's hand in mine as we navigated the event together. The genuine hug Austin gave me before the ceremony. My mother's tearful, "I'm so glad you're here," whispered during the reception. Small moments of authentic connection amidst the pageantry. On our flight back to Boston, Lauren rested her head on my shoulder. "So, how do you feel about all of it now?" I considered the question carefully. I think I've spent most of my life seeking validation from people who weren't equipped to give it, trying to earn my place in a family where I already had one, just not the one I wanted. And now I understand that family is partly what you're born into, but mostly what you choose to build. You, Kyle, my friends in Boston, the community we've created, that's my real support system. My parents in Austin, they're my family too, but in a different way, with different expectations and boundaries. "That sounds remarkably healthy," Lauren observed. "Don't sound so surprised," I laughed. "I'm capable of personal growth." "I never doubted it," she replied, squeezing my hand. "The truth is, family relationships are rarely simple or perfect. The wounds of childhood don't heal overnight, and patterns established over decades don't transform in an instant. But they can change, gradually, with honest communication and firm boundaries. I still feel twinges of the old hurt sometimes when I see my parents' social media gushing about Austin's achievements while mentioning mine as an afterthought. But those moments no longer define me or determine my worth. I've learned that seeking validation from sources unlikely to provide it is a recipe for perpetual disappointment. Instead, I focus on the relationships that naturally nurture and support me. I pour my creative energy into designing spaces that bring communities together. I build a life that reflects my values rather than chasing approval I might never fully receive. And perhaps most importantly, I've learned that sometimes putting yourself first isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes a ski selfie with a pointed caption is exactly what's needed to break patterns of silence and denial. Sometimes standing up and saying, "This isn't acceptable to me," is the healthiest response to unhealthy dynamics. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members who couldn't see your true worth? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else feeling invisible in their own family. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone in family struggles. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more nurturing than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in creating the connections that truly value who you are.